Is there a correctional facility or a something high school that where they got ballers that nobody knows about? Because it's like Houston backs the truck up every week and just dumps them out on the court.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and with us on this Throwdown Thursday edition, academic and athletic consultant for the Odd Coaches Podcast, George Hockett. George, I like that one. I think I'm going to stick with it. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good. What's going on? What's going on?
All right. Our favorite administrator is here, Robert Abney. Robert, welcome to the show.
What's going on? Hey, living the dream out here in Texas. It is playoff time. Girls basketball state high school playoffs start this week.
All right. And I snuck him in because his schedule is legitimately busy. Fowler and Campbell, what's going on, sir?
What's going on, Coach, man? Thanks for having me, man. I'm glad to be here.
All right. So in segment one, loving the net, and we got three basketball guys on, so they can yell at me all they want to. In segment two, we're going to talk about the women's game. And in segment three, we're going to bring it back to college football and talk about one of my new favorite coaches, Chip Kelly. But first, net rankings as of this taping. Number 1 is Houston. 2, Purdue. 3, Arizona. 4, UConn. 5, Tennessee. 6, Alabama. 7, Auburn. 8, BYU is still hanging around. 9, Iowa State. And 10, the University of North Carolina. Hottest teams, meaning they have 10 or more straight wins as of this taping. Only UConn, Winnipeg, and St. Mary's. So before we talk about our story of the week, Robert, any team this week catch your interest in men's college basketball?
Well, I think there one team that catches my eye right now for sure by their lack of presence is Gonzaga. I mean, how long has Gonzaga been top 10, hanging around top 10?
They just got that big win against Kentucky, though.
They're not ranked. They are 25, 24 in the net. So they will not win the regular season conference tournament. They may have to win the West Coast to get in, because not only do you have St. Mary's rolling, you got San Francisco lurking around. So I think that's one that is conspicuous by their absence, right?
Okay. All right. George, who caught your eye this week in men's college basketball?
This week, well, man, I'm trying to figure out what is going on down there in that part of Texas. And Robert, help me out. Is there a correctional facility or a something high school that where they got ballers that nobody knows about? Because it's like Houston backs the truck up every week and just dumps them out on the court. And Baylor must have been recruiting at the same correctional facility, because you don't hear about these kids earlier. You might hear about one or two, but Houston just continue. It's like a conveyor belt with those two schools.
I'll tell you what. I am continuously amazed going to high school and junior college and D3 games and NAIA games. There are ballers everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, every team has kids that are 6'5", 6'6", 6'7", and just long and athletic and can run and jump. It is crazy, the number of kids who are athletic. There's none of these guys really have to leave Texas to find guys. I mean, I live near a town nobody's heard of. I live near Killeen, which is where Fort Cavazos is, big Army base. You know, there's a kid at one high school here. He's going to Harker High. If he's from Harker Heights High School, he's going to TCU. Houston has a kid who went to Shoemaker. There's a kid from Vermont last night, scored the game-winning basket. We're taping on Sunday morning. This is Saturday night. Scored the game-winning basket at Vermont from Colleen Ellison. Another kid from Colleen Ellison's at Oklahoma State. There are ballers everywhere, man. It's crazy.
And it's like they just regurgitate them. It's fit that shell between 6'9" and probably about 6'4", somewhere in there. They can all run, they can all jump. And the best thing about it is that for a coach, they are played defense. And when they play defense, I mean, they play hard-nosed defense. So they all, watching Houston it was crazy to me. I'm trying to figure how Calvin Sampson continues to get all these ballers out here. It's all good until some NCAA violation comes up. So, it's all good.
All right, Fowler. First of all, I hope you're taking notes for Tony. That's a side joke. And second of all, who has caught your eye this week in men's college basketball?
Man, I gotta go with UConn, man. They're really showing their dominance in the Big East. They got one bad loss to Seton Hall. Lost to Kansas, which is a good team, but after that, they just dominating everybody they play. You know what I mean? And that's really what's catching my eye, man. It's just them coming from winning a natty and coming right back and asserting their dominance. I feel like they'll move back up to number one by the tournament time. And it's going to be interesting to see them in the tournament.
I mean, that's really the only team I trust right now. I agree with you.
Yeah.
So our story of the week, fans, we have come to the time where we're making the second loop in conference play. So now we've got to give you teams to pay attention to because we've got some bid stealers coming up. So let me tell you what a bid stealer is. They have a high net ranking. They play in a conference that should have multiple bids. And if they don't win the conference tournament, they're going to take the bid of one of your favorite teams. So I'm going to start with George. George, you have the list of potential bid stealers in front of you. Any team or two that you're like, man, you better hope they win the conference, or one of your favorite teams is just not going to make it in the tournament. What are you thinking about as a bid stealer?
Well, I particularly pay attention to the ACC, so I'm gonna tell you this: Clemson. Look. I didn't think it's been a while since it's been a while since they've been relevant or whatever, but they got a solid team down there. I watched them the other day. They could go through and they could win the tournament. Duke is always shaky; they're not their regular, and Carolina is playing old school Carolina ball. But you want to talk about a bid stealer? Clemson's the one that can sneak in on you.
All right, Robert, who's a bid stealer for you, sir?
Well, I mean, talking about sticking with the Texas theme, SMU is probably one, although I'm going to tell you, I think they probably have to win the American Conference tournament because the only other team in the conference that has a decent net is Florida Atlantic. SMU sitting at 42. And after that, you go all the way down to Memphis. And if they don't win the conference tournament, I'm not sure they can get in because they're not going to have a whole bunch of opportunities to get quality wins. The other is Big 12, you got TCU and Texas Tech and Texas and Baylor and everybody else in the Big 12, and they are all just beating the snot out of each other.
Yeah.
It is almost impossible to win on the road. Not completely impossible. I left out Houston there. There's another one. But it's not completely impossible, but it is dang near impossible to win on the road. And it's not going to hurt anybody's net rankings. But, sorting that out is going to be a challenge when it comes tournament time. And then obviously I'm going to go with the Mountain West as the third one. You have 5 teams that are all kind of between like 6 and 11, Colorado State, Utah State, Boise State, Nevada, New Mexico. And, they will all, they'll all win big games. And then, they've all laid eggs. New Mexico last night, on Saturday night, the pit is sold out. They're playing UNLV, who lost by 30 to Air Force a couple weeks ago, laid an egg and lost. So, and you want to talk about a bid stealer in the Mountain West? UNLV plays the Mountain West Conference tournament on their home floor.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
Shark Tank.
All right, following. You have a unique lens into the A10 amongst other conferences. Who are your potential bid stealers out there?
When we talk about bid stealers, we're talking about teams because I look at Dayton and obviously
You're a bid stealer.
well, are they a bid stealer? They're ranked in top 25, and if they don't win the A10, then obviously they will be in there. But I look at it, a bid stealer is a team that's on the brinks of not making that tournament. And like I can easily say like Wake Forest is a brink stealer, but I know they're going to make the tournament even if they don't win the A10. I'm sorry, the ACC. But then I scroll down the list and I look at teams like Butler. Like the Big East is going to be interesting. You know what I mean? Because they're beating each other up. I look at Providence, what Kim is doing over there. They're a little beat up, but those teams, which probably might not win the Big East, but I think they'll get in there. They'll get in the tournament. I think Providence and Butler are two key teams that I think that'll probably, be those type of teams where it's like, we know they're not going to win it, the Big East, but they got a good chance of, getting in that tournament.
Yes,
Man,
and fans, this is our biggest bid stealer right here. George Mason, when Folloran's team went, they were either one of the last teams in or the last team in, and there were a lot of folks hot. And this is what we're trying to get you to think about is there's going to be a lot of folks hot that their favorite teams are not in, but we're trying to tell you.
I'll go ahead, Rob.
But Butler's 50 in the net and Providence is 57 in the net. I mean, they got work to do.
Yeah.
I'll give you a bid stealer. Because they should, because they'll win their conference tournament. At North Carolina, Asheville wound up winning the Big South because they're a solid team. Because High Point, I can't trust them. Winthrop is still out there, and they could wind up winning the conference and take that bid from the top teams from regular that's been there for the past couple of years, man.
All right, so fans, when we get back, we're going to do the same thing with the women's game, but a lot more chalk, as we tell you every week. We'll be right back on the Eye Coaches Podcast.
The CKA SAVE Project is an industry leader in advocating for student-athlete, academic, and athletic needs. Through academic and athletic enrichment, the CKA SAVE Project is on the forefront of the issues facing 21st century student-athletes. As student-athletes continue to struggle to find a better balance between academic and athletic success, the CKA SAVE Project offers academic and athletic services to support student-athlete academic success, including academic skills assessment, academic and athletic consulting, academic monitoring, academic and athletic workshops. For more information or to schedule a free consultation, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Eye Coaches Podcast. In segment 2, we're going to talk the women's game. And unlike the men's game where there's so much parity and they're bid stealing, in the women's game it's bid hogging because, my goodness, these conferences are loaded. So let's get to the net. South Carolina is 1, Stanford 2, UConn 3, Texas is 4, Iowa is 5, Utah is 6, UCLA is 7, Kansas State is 8, LSU is 9 in the net ranking, and Notre Dame is 10. Hottest teams, meaning they've got 10 or more wins: Florida Gulf Coast, Ohio State, Princeton, Fairfield, South Carolina, South Dakota State University, the Jackrabbits, and Gonzaga. So, Robert, this week in women's basketball, anything catch your eye?
Well, I got to throw it out because Will's not here. Where's Juju and USC? Just because he's not here, I got to throw that out.
Got to.
I actually watched Iowa this past week. They played Penn State at home, and they're doing a big old countdown for Caitlin Clark breaking Kelsey Plum's scoring record. And I was struck by a couple of things. Number one, and you probably don't want her to because you don't want to get her in foul trouble. Caitlin Clark guards nobody. Like nobody. And that will be interesting when she moves on, when she finally moves on to the next level, what that looks like, because you have to at least ask the question, can she guard anybody?
Mm-hmm.
I think she can, but you don't see it. The other thing is Penn State played really good defense on her. They made her move off the ball. They just did not let her get in a rhythm, and they threw a bunch of different people at her. They played aggressively. They played smart. They played hard. They held her to 27 points. She had 15 dimes. One of her teammates scored 50, and they won by 20. So I don't know. She doesn't have to guard anybody because they're legit. That's a good team. Can they beat South Carolina again? But I don't know. But they're really good.
Okay, George. Anything in the women's game catch your eye?
The Mirage, I guess it is the Mirage Conference. I call them that because we ain't gonna see them next year. That Pac-12. They're a tough conference. They got some. If you look away from the SEC for a moment and the Big Ten, they have some really good teams out there. And it's a surprise, the shock. Two things shocked me this week was how good they are and how good Colorado is. I know USC takes a lot of the fanfare because Juju is killing out there, but how good Colorado is because they came from nowhere. Nobody was expecting them. And how hot NC State is. Good God. NC State, they only lost 2 games so far this year. NC State is on a roll. And you still got Duke and Carolina. Maryland's not in the top 25 this week, I don't think. And so you got the regulars that aren't there, but man, NC State is hot and it's wild. It's like good to see Colorado there. But hey, I said with Colorado, that's that Deion effect. You get prime there, and everybody wants to come to play a sport. So
right. Following, what about you? And again, you've got one of the hottest teams in the country yourself in your backyard. Which teams have caught your eye?
Obviously Mason is doing well, women's side. But honestly, the team that's caught my eye is I like Ohio State, man. Randomly, they got a bunch of ladies who go out there, they play hard, they full court press, they trapping, and they're relentless. I'm talking about they're relentless, man. So I'm interested to see how they look come tournament time. I like what I'm seeing from UCLA as well. You know what I mean? I like their team and what they're doing. So it's this tournament's gonna be interesting. Obviously, we know we got South Carolina up there, who's I think will go undefeated and win it all. But I'm interested. It's just after that, it's like, look, I'm interested to see how if the UCLA matches up against Iowa, you know what I mean, or Stanford matches up against Utah. Like I like Utah as well. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say her name right, wrong, but I think she's Samoan. I'm not sure.
Yes. Dominating right now.
She's a beast in the paint.
I love her, and she can stretch out, shoot a three, man. Like, it's a beauty to watch women's basketball right now.
All right. So before we talk about the bid hoarders, Robert brought up something that I'm glad he did because I'm curious to get our panel's thoughts on this very briefly. Sheryl Swoopes, who is a Hall of Fame player, one of the greatest basketball players ever, on Gilbert Arenas' podcast said she doesn't think that Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese will transition to the program immediately. She mentioned that because there's limited roster spots. Current WNBA players will fight to hang on to their jobs, and it's hard for rookies to do some work. In addition, she received some heat talking about Caitlin Clark and Kelsey Plum's record. So, Robert, before we transition, one, did you hear about Sheryl Swoopes' comments? Again, being in Texas, it might have been more prevalent than it was here. And two, any comment on that before we transition to the bid hoarders?
Well, first of all, and you and I and George are old enough to remember, following probably is too. Sheryl Swoopes was a baller.
Following
I mean,
following those YouTube. He only don't know.
Hey, I mean, she was Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
I mean, when they won the national championship at Texas Tech, I mean, she was it. And Cheryl Swoops could play. She was a great, great player.
Oh yeah.
This is I hate to say it, but I say it about myself all the time. This is a get off my lawn statement.
Okay.
That's what this is.
Okay.
And two things can be true at the same time. You know, you can say as a great player, you know, that I have concerns about this player without these players, without dogging them. Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese are going to have zero issues transitioning their game to the pro game. Zero, like none. Okay. But you can say, hey, I played in a different time and we played a different style and all of that kind of stuff. You can say all of those things without having to say, yeah, it was different back in my day when we walked uphill to school both ways in the snow. I mean, you know, come on. That's
all right. George,
when I saw that was my thought.
George, quick thought, real quick. I don't want to hijack it, but did it come across your desk? And what did you think about Cheryl Swoops' comment?
I found it funny, and I was thinking the same thing. Robert just said what I was thinking. It sounded like the old man on the front yard because Cheryl Swoops. I'm not taking anything away from her. She was a baller, but at that time, where the girls' game was at that time compared to where it is now is a total different universe. And some of these girls are amazing athletes and ballers right now. And also the talent spread out. Cheryl Swoops, that USC team, Cheryl Swoops played on one of the best cohort teams you've ever seen. I mean, they were stacked. And it was either USC, Tennessee, or Louisiana Tech, pretty much, because they were rotating back and forth. And now you got good teams and good players all over the country. So yeah, Robert had my sentiment off the break with the old man on the front yard, man. That's exactly what it was.
Now following, you and I have private conversations, and I try not to be old man, get off my lawn. So I will call you often. Fans inside scoop with coach and player and say, can you tell me if I'm crazy feeling this way? So you've listened to those comments in terms of just, you know, reading the thoughts. As the next generation down, what did you think about what Cheryl Swoops said about Caitlin Clark?
As the younger generation would say, it sounds like hate.
Okay.
Like you're hating on me. You know what I mean? And, you know, we're all a little jealous about the NIL stuff and all this stuff they're getting.
Yes, we are.
These ladies can flat out ball. Like, I don't know why you would say they can't play on the next level. Honestly, I think, you know, Caitlin will be an impactful player both of them will be impactful immediately. But it's just that they're two different dynamic players. You know what I mean? One can score and one she's going to light up the WNBA. And another one is a hustle player. Like she's going to she's going to, you know, dominate around the basket. So I don't know.
All right. And again, fans, this is legitimate. As stuff comes up, man, talk me through this. Here's what I saw, coach, whatever. Okay, I can live with whatever. So now we're going to talk about the bid hoarders. So unlike the men's game, the women's game is top heavy. The fellas have the projected number of bids from the major conference. So Robert, I'm going to start with you. Which conferences, and it can be plural, do you think are going to hoard most of the bids? Because it's like going to be a big girls tournament, and you're going to have to bring it. So what are you thinking right now, halfway through the women's season?
Well, I mean, you know, I think Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Big 12. I mean, between those four conferences, let's throw the Pac-12 in there just so we have the Power 5 conferences. Between those 5 conferences, it's not inconceivable that they take 42 bids between the 5 of them.
Wow.
And I mean, you're talking 7, 8, even 9 teams from each of those conferences because they're that deep and they're that good. This past week, I talked about Iowa. In the Big Ten, you had Ohio State beat Indiana, and both of those teams have been ranked all year. We talked about, Fowler and reference Stanford and Utah. Both of those teams have been ranked all year. We've talked about LSU and South Carolina, obviously, both ranked all year, top 5 teams. I mean, that's the way that's the way the women's game is right now. There's more parity in the sense that it's not UConn and everybody else anymore. And there is no parity because it's the Power 5 conferences, because they have the resources to go out and get what they're after.
All right, George, what are your thoughts? No mid-majors allowed? What are you thinking?
No, and I agree with Robert. It looks like college basketball, men's college basketball used to look like. You're talking about, and Robert's right, 7 to 8 bids from the Power 5. And we've talked about every team we've talked about that has impressed us that we've seen has all been from one of the Power 5 conferences. They sit there and they beat themselves up. Like, we're on the East Coast. I'm looking Duke, Carolina, Notre Dame, and go through with the and NC State or in the AC. They're going in it's like a round robin. Who's going to win tonight? So it's going to and that happens in the SEC, well, outside of South Carolina, and especially in how impressed I am with them out west with the Mirage Conference right now. So they're going to eat them up, and it's going to be hard because it's going to be hard for a mid-major to squeak in and steal a bid right now because they are that solid.
Fowler, and you are in a unique situation because you're at George Mason, and the women's team is one of the best mid-major teams in the country. And if this was the men's side, they'd be fighting for an at-large bid. Mm-hmm. What are you thinking about that from your lens?
It's just hard for the mid-majors, and I understand why, the Power 5 schools would get, most of those teams in because there's just not enough upsets on the women's side. If there were more upsets, then they would have more confidence in putting more mid-major schools in there. But at this point, we're just not there yet. And until we get there, I think we're just going to see the Power 5 schools continue to compete against each other until we start seeing those upsets during the season, non-conference games. You know what I mean? Once we start seeing okay, you know what, there's some mid-major schools that can actually, that are actually beating these Power 5 schools. Now we can start, look, let's see what we can get this at-large bid. Let's see if we can put them in there. Florida Gulf Coast, for instance. You know what I mean? Like, they're always good during the season, but then they get in the tournament, they lose by 2. Like, it's just difficult,
This should be very, very interesting with that. Looking forward to watching the tournaments. The conference tournament season will be here shortly. So with that, in segment 3, we're going to talk about my new favorite coach, Chip Kelly, because he got off the boat and stayed at Ohio State. So let's talk about that when we get back on the iCoaches podcast.
The reviews are in for Dr. Keith Adams' book, Finding the Balance, My Personal Journey to Academic and Athletic Success. College professor and student athlete academic expert Dr. Lisa Rubin said, "There is nothing out there like this book, so I do hope people will pay attention and give it a read." Former George Mason standout Fowler and Campbell said, "Consider this book an opportunity to work directly with Dr. Adams just like I did. I assure you that there will be something you can take away that will be useful to you throughout your personal journey." Ryan Waite, a recent college graduate who is a software engineer, said, "I like how the book is based on research, which makes it good for general students as well as student athletes." The book serves as both a memoir to Dr. Adams' 30-year academic and athletic career, as well as an instructional guide to assist student athletes, parents, coaches, teachers, and administrators navigate through the challenges of finding a better balance between academic and athletic success. The book includes over 15 personal stories and anecdotes from Dr. Adams, along with numerous former players and colleagues from a variety of sports and endeavors. You can order your copy at www.ckasaveproject.org. From the main page, simply click CKA Save Project services and order the Find the Balance book. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Eye Coaches Podcast. In segment 3, we are in a changing time. And this is outstanding for coaches, players. This is a great time to be in the business. Former UCLA football coach Chip Kelly is now the new offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach at Ohio State. Kelly replaces Bill O'Brien, who was named as head coach at Boston College, which is a great move for Bill O'Brien. Kelly and the Buckeyes agreed to a 3-year deal. Terms were not disclosed. It will be. It's a state university. They'll eventually have to share that. And Ohio State will pay a $1.5 million buyout to UCLA for Chip Kelly. So why now? Why are we making these moves now? The reasoning behind the departure comes to just wanting to coach again. Guys don't sign up to be the recruiter, the donor, the this, the that. People got into coaching just to coach, and UCLA stinks, and they were going to fire him next year anyway. And if he beats Michigan, we'll probably get a NFL gig. So this is a new trend. Chip Kelly went 35-34 in 6 seasons at UCLA. Sounds like mediocre. And he becomes the 4th college coach in this coaching cycle to leave a head coaching gig for an assistant job, joining Jeff Hafley, who went to the Packers, Mo Linguist, who went to Alabama, and Kane Womack, who also went to Alabama. And the UCLA job is not as good as you think it is, because despite the ideal location and the history, you're not getting W's, and their roster ranks at the bottom of the Power 5 rankings. And George, here's who they got coming up for 2024. LSU, Oregon, Penn State, and Washington is whoever is getting that job. Chip Kelly applied for a bunch of NFL jobs, and it's just kind of time to go. So, George, let's start off with you. What are your thoughts about Chip Kelly and other coaches saying, you know what, I will move 19 inches the other way and just kind of step back from these roles? What are you thinking?
Smart. I mean, be honest, he was between a rock and a hard place, and he got a lifeline to get out, because Chip really wanted to go. He wanted to go back to the NFL, and I think a lot of coaches are looking that way, because of what NIL has done, where your market is, where you can compete. And his was a real unique situation, because tell you honestly, his quarterback, the recruit, the kid that he had that was a freshman last year that traded off and came in, he's got talent. I mean, he is really good. But it made sense to walk away now, because, like you said, you just talked about that schedule, that avalanche that's coming. Chip Kelly did not want to get caught underneath, because somebody was going to have to come in and save him, because it's not going to be pretty next year. With the Pac-10, 12, whatever it is, that conference we still got in our head that we reminisce about and tear up and remember when OJ was great and all that kind of stuff. That conference is gone. That is done, and they're getting ready to jump in the deep water with sharks, and they're going in with minnows. So it's not going to be a good situation for them. So yeah, you want Chip Kelly was smart. That's what I got for you. Smart.
Okay. Robert, you are our favorite administrator, and we have many private conversations about transitional things. What was your thoughts when you heard about Chip Kelly and these other coaches saying, ding, ding, I'll get off on this ride?
Well, to me, that sounds like that he wants to get off the NIL bus, because he's no longer in charge of that. He doesn't have to deal with that anymore. He just gets to coach. And if you just want to coach, you want to be a coordinator, or you want to go to the NFL, because if you are a head coach now, you're having to manage all of that NIL stuff. And yes, they weren't going to be any good. And yes, if they weren't any good, he was going to get fired. But I see it as a symptom of something larger. I think especially, the lower, the non-Power 5 schools, those guys moving to become coordinators at Power 5 schools. I think we're going to see more and more and more of that because people don't want to deal with the NIL stuff. And if you're the head coach, you're not a coach anymore. You're really a CEO. You're running the show. So I get it. I think that's why Nick Saban retired. Nick Saban was not tired of coaching. Nick Saban was tired of the other stuff.
And fans, I'm curious to hear this. Follower is a high school assistant basketball coach, and he's around the game. Has a unique lens in that. When you heard about Chip Kelly getting off the boat, what did you think, sir?
I mean, I gotta agree with George. It was a smart move. I think he definitely wanted to go to the NFL. That didn't work out. So it's like, all right, well, Ohio State does have opportunities to win a national championship, and it's about winning. Let's go. Like UCLA is not winning the national championship anytime soon. So let me go somewhere where winning does matter, and we got a good opportunity to win. Now it's like, okay, look, let me build my resume here with wins, and then we try to make another effort to get to the NFL. Like, I think Chip's ultimate goal is definitely to get to the NFL, and Ohio State move was the right move to make for him to get in that direction.
Yeah, because again, if they beat Michigan and they get into the playoffs and do marginally well and let the defense collapse, next hiring cycle, Chip Kelly to insert team. No,
and Keith, I will say this: it does create a interesting dynamic because if they do go out, offense looks remarkably better. They beat Michigan. Does Ryan Day feel a kind of certain way at that point in time? Because, you couldn't get it done without Chip. And, Chip comes out looking good altogether because, Ohio State is like 2 seconds away from getting rid of Ryan Day. Now, if they win, is it because we got Chip and Chip did something different? Do we need to go in this direction and let Chip run the whole ball? See,
I'm going to hit you back with that one. Ryan played for Chip, and now Chip works for Ryan. And to me, it's the equivalent of my former player saying, hey, coach, come on, hang out with us. All you got to do is this, and we got the rest. I don't know. That's kind of how I'm looking at
it. I'm looking at it as like the originators come in, and he drew the script. The kid couldn't quite get the script correct. So now I'm getting the original, So
let me show you how to do this. Kid.
That's right. Robert, my spin didn't work for you either.
That's right.
I'm looking at your face. My spin didn't work for you either.
No, Robert's thinking the same thing I am.
I ain't buying that, man.
Because if Chip was to leave, the next year Chip leaves, and then they come back and they get blown out by Michigan, they're gonna go, "Oh, it was Chip." So it was Chip. Yep, it's a bad look for Ryan Day either way, man. So,
all right, so fans, on behalf of our Cavalcade of Stars, I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and/or watching the Odd Coaches podcast, and we will see you on the sidelines. Till next time, take care.
The Odd Coaches podcast is sponsored by the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project is an industry leader in providing student-athlete academic and athletic support. From assessing student-athletes' academic and athletic skills to measuring and monitoring student-athlete academic progress to improving student-athlete time management and organizational skills, the CKA Save Project provides wraparound services for student-athletes from middle school through college. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by emailing cka@ckasaveproject.org.
We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the Odd Coaches podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach, Franchize. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches Podcast.